Hello, I'm going to start talking about Jerome David Salinger. He was born on January 1st, 1919 in New York, USA. And he died on January 27, 2020. He was an American writer whose novel The Catcher in the Rye in 1951 he won a critical acclaim and devoted admirers, especially among the post-World War II generation of college students. His corpus of published works also consists of short stories that were printed in magazines, including the Saturday Evening Post, Esquire, and the New Yorker.
Let's just say that this book is certainly one open to a lot of controversy and debate, yet that is what makes such an interesting read. The Catcher in the Rye would be everyone's cup of tea. However, I find it an exciting read with a broader reality in along with some humor, contrasted with some moments of depression. The adult world, unreliable narration, and growing up. Having read this novel before, I went into The Catcher in the Rye. Remember how moving I found Holden's emotional journey? The novel opens with Holden learning he's been expelled from yet another school. This doesn't disappoint him as much as it reminds him of his irritation at the work requirement. Holden spends most of his working hours pushing back and mentally argued with and resisting participation in the adult world. The character in the Rye is told from Holden's perspective. He is the perfect embodiment, let's going to say that, of what is known as unreliable narrator. His emotions are strong, his opinions are prominent, and any deception of another character or even himself is tainted by those emotional opinions. I found one of the most wonderful aspects of the novel to be the way in which Salinger puts the reader into Holden's words. As I read, I really learned how to see through his eyes and come to an understanding of his personal vision of the transitory period between childhood and adulthood. Relationships in The Catcher in the Rye. After being expelled and before leaving the school, Holden engaged in a fight with his roommate Ward, much bigger than Holden. Ward beat him handily. Through this scene, I found myself interested to the passion Holden feels only in very specific aspects of his life, of course. In this case, for a young woman named Jane, he made in Maine when he was much younger. He sought to defend her honor against Ward, someone he knew only cared about having sex with her. This passion reappears in select portions of Holden's life later on the novel. Despite not caring about school, the adults in his life, relationships with his peers, or his future, he does feel deeply for his sister and his younger brother. Ellie Holden's relationships to his younger brother, who died years prior to the start of the novel, since the entire narrative. Holden's relationship with his sister, which is experienced in real time later on the novel, the reader is exposed to one of the only healthy interactions in the novel. Despite being younger than he is, Holden's sister Phoebe is wise, often sharing advice with her older brother in an effort to help him sort out his life. It's due to her influence that he doesn't attempt to run away in the concluding scenes of The Catcher in the Rye. In fact, she instigates what is arguably the most emotional moment of the novel, the concluding scene in which Holden pays for her right for her to ride a carousel and cries as he observes her happiness and peace at that moment.
Death in The Catcher in the Rye. Death, one of the major themes of The Catcher in the Rye, asserts himself as holding contents with his role in the war, and whether or not he is going to able to find a purpose. There are moments in which he seems to contemplate suicide as a reasonable option, and even praises a young man who did commit suicide in order to escape bullies. This section of the novel spoke to me of an underlying desperation Holden feels, claustrophobia brought on by a perceived lack of option. Concluding essence of The Catcher in the Rye. I found myself in the latter section of the novel contemplating the complexities of Holden's option of adults, adulthood, and childhood. He has an obvious preference for young and whether articulate or not, a constant fear of the future. Holden's lack of interest in being an adult stems in part from his cynical view of the way adults interact with another and with children. He sees this interaction as fake, put on, and often exaggerated. One of the best examples comes from his consideration of death and funeral practice. Throughout, The Catcher in the Rye takes the reader on a Kerouac-style journey through New York City and at the same time the deepest part of Holden's mind. The conclusion of the novel is deeply moving, taking the reader out to the interior narrative and back to Holden in the present, retelling the story of this period from within a mental institution. This is a shocking reminder of the consequence of the pressure of contemporary society and how they weigh heavily on the young more than anywhere else. The Catcher in the Rye is one of those novels that every high school age student has to read. Some come away baffled by Holden's behavior, while others find themselves drawn into his rebellion and dissatisfaction with the world. As an injustice creation, Holden represents everyone's irritation with the various phases that the world accepts as genuine. Fonny says, in Holden's world is entirely unacceptable. In this novel, a reader is thrust into an August Filed, desperate and often destructive account of a young man's life. By the end, when the framed novel concludes, readers are left to wonder where Holden is going to next and if it is possible for him and for themselves to find happiness.
Okay, the character list. In the first place, we have the narrator and the main character. He is Holden Caulfield, and he is a 16-year-old boy who was recently expelled from academic failures. So, through his narration, a reader comes to see the world through his eyes. He expressed a cynical but intelligent opinion about the world that he has around him. The next character is Ackley. He is Holden's neighbor at their school, Pensy Prep. He is insecure, annoying, and he has terrible hygiene habits. The next one is Jane Gallagher. Holden meets Jane in one summer, so Holden holds her in his mind as the perfect woman. He cares about her a lot. The next one is Phoebe. She is Holden's little sister. She gives Holden's good and thoughtful advice in the novel. Next one is Ali. He was Holden's younger brother, who died when he was 13. He was a smart young boy and perfect child. The next one is D.B. He is Holden's older brother. He went to World War II and is now an author of short stories. Next one is Mr. Spencer. He is an older man who taught history at Pensy Prep and invites Holden to his house and tries to help him. Other character is Mr. Antolini. He is Holden's former English teacher at the Elkhorn Hill School. He teaches at New York University. He is clever and sympathetic, and for these reasons, Holden respects him a lot.